Hello, hello. Welcome on into another episode of the Whiskey Crusaders. I'm Will.
No, Matt.
This is Weasley. Today we're sipping on Four Roses. I believe this is their standard bourbon edition.
Correct.
Don't you forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Click that notification bell. Matt, do you want to tell me more about this particular Four Roses?
Oh, I do. This is the Four Roses. This is the original yellow label. That's just the most basic bourbon there is that they make. There's a very long history I'm not going to go into. I think Jack Daniels level long. So sit around back about
So
5
Future
minutes.
Will's going to go ahead and throw up the time that if you need to just go ahead and skip to the tasting and nosing notes, those are right there. Right there. Future Will just put those in there for you.
Yes, but if you
Thanks,
like history, this is all for you guys, as you know how much I like history. All right, so Four Roses, which we've not covered. This has been on the channel for over 3 years. All right, this is the Four Roses, like it says, founded in 1888 by Paul Jones Jr. It was named Four Roses because he was smitten with a young Southern belle, and he asked her for a proposal. She said she'd wear a corsage of roses if she answered yes or no. And when she came down the grand ball, she had a Four Roses corsage on, and to honor his smitten love with her, he named his bourbon Four Roses. That's the story of the legend of Four Roses, why it's called that. If it's really true or not, who knows, but it's a really great story for marketing. All right, so he moved in 1884 to Louisville, Kentucky, to this place called Whiskey Row, and 4 years later actually launched the Four Roses brand, which he then said he backed into the 1860s, actually been making illegal prior, but whatever. Who knows? That's the story we're going to go with. Says then in 1910, the distillery moved to Lawrenceburg into a Spanish mission-style building, which is now in the National Historical Register. It was built by Joseph and Joseph architects, who were very famous architects back in the day. In fact, they're still around today to build distilleries, so pretty cool. And then they eventually went on to buy the old Prentice Distillery as well in 1922. So that was owned by a guy named J.T.S. Brown, who we'll talk about another point in time, another famous guy you might have heard of. So once they purchased that, then they also the Franklin Distillery Company as well. So they keep buying and buying, which is pretty simple for distillers to do. Then around 1943, Seagram's comes calling, as we know, is a beautiful Canadian company. What do? Well, they want the Four Roses brand. It's the top-selling bourbon in the United States. In fact, the entire world. It was the biggest in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So what do the brilliant guys at Seagram's do? We're going to discontinue making a bourbon in the United States. And now it's only available in Europe and Asia because that's the big markets for bourbon, because bourbon's dying in this country. So at that point in time, there's no more bourbon. It's now been turned into a blend of G&S and a little bit of whiskey. And it's a very terrible blend. So, and the reason I know it is my grandfather said after the war, I asked him what he would drink. And he said after the war was Four Roses and Three Feathers, and they were both terrible, but that's what he could afford. So that's what he drank. So I can confirm this from an actual person who was there when this stuff happened. So, like I said, after that, they decide, hey, maybe we should make a bourbon again. So this guy named Jim Rutledge was hired in 1966, worked there for Seagram's, and then eventually he would get to the headquarters and said, can you please send him back to Kentucky? Because the headquarters in New York. And he worked on to bring the bourbon back to an actual bourbon to America. So then between 1999 and 2002, the distillery changed hands 4 times. Finally, Curran Brewery out of Japan bought it in 2002 and said, yes, we will bring bourbon back to America. So Jim Rutledge personally, and him and his team, went around the entire country, bought all of the Red Four Roses that was on the market, just bought all of it, and then just trashed all the blends, got them off the shelves because they didn't want anyone to think about it. And then I think in 2005, they finally released this bad boy, an actual bourbon, back to the market. So there's lots of more fun things here, but you need to know about, of course, Four Roses. So 10 years, and in 2015, he retired. This guy named Brent Elliott took over. I think you might have heard of him. So lots of single barrels. He signed them. They're quite delicious whiskeys that he makes. So he learned under the tutelage of Jim Rutledge for 10 years. In 2019, they had the expansion of their project. They now can double their capacity from 4 million to 8 million gallons. So that's a lot to double the thing. In fact, not only that, they can now make up to 130,000 barrels a year, which is a lot of whiskey. They added 2 new buildings, and they're both in the same Spanish style, so they don't want them to be looking any different. They have also taken out, now this has been around for a while, they have the Cox Creek warehouse, which is where they actually do their bottling and their warehousing over there. But the small batch select was how they released when the new expansion of these was the first new product in 12 years. All right, so the other fun thing, of course, about Four Roses is they have lots of different cool things. They have 10 recipes. They've got, 2 different mash bills and 5 different yeasts. So, you can collect all 10 because that's what we do. We'll be like Pokemon, collect them all. We got 6 or 7 of them right now, so we can collect a few more. But like I said, so you've got the mash bill, which is the typical one, which is the 60-35-5, which is mash bill B. Then you got mash bill E, which is a 75 corn, 20 rye, 5 barley, which, both those are pretty high for rye contents, not usually that high. So they're all considered a high rye bourbon with them. Then they have, like I said, they have the yeast strain. So you've got the V for delicate fruit, the K for slight spice, the O for rich fruit, the Q for floral essence, and the F for herbal notes. And of course, so the funny thing is, I didn't know this. The O you always see on it, like an OBSK or whatever. The O is actually for the Old Prentice Distillery, because back when Seagram's had it, the O was stamped on there, and they didn't want to actually bother changing the name. So no, it is. So that's why the O is on there, the front of the stuff. And the S on there actually just means straight whiskey. So it's kind of a thing. So the O and the S are always on there. And just really all changing is the mash bill or the yeast strain. So those are kind of cool and fun things about them. And the other thing, if you go on their website, you can see each of the ones. And then if you go on there, show you these 10 of them, this one, there's 4 in the small batch, and then 6 in the small batch select. And it shows you which ones are each of them. So you can go check that out on their website. It's a really great website, fun, nerdy time. Spent about 2 hours on there earlier today. So good times. All right. So what other fun stuff you got? So you need some other fun things about them is they, for 50 years, are the exact same source for their corn. It's non-GMO. They one of the most high rise. They're spring-fed the Salt River, which is kind of a funny name for a river. That's their water source. They come off the still 138 to 140 off the column. Then they go to a doubler still, and they go up a little bit higher on 132 on the column, then up to 130, 140 on the doubler. And then they take the tanker trucks, take all that, pump it over, take it to Cox Creek, but then they take it in there and put it into another fun stainless steel tank. Then they check sure all the impurities are in there, all that fun stuff. And then they take it, and then they lower it down to 120 proof before they stick it in the barrels. So it's a little 125, of course, is the maximum you're allowed, but they do for 120 for taste for them. And then for a minimum of 5 years, how long they age it for. And then they dump into a stainless steel tank, and it's chill filtered, which is the part that none of us are told about. So the good news is the LE and the Soul Select are not chill filtered. So, but we'll cover this another point in time. All right. So what's in the bottle? Let's go finally get what's in the bottle. All right. Like I said, this bottle is 40%. Like I said, it's their basic product. All 10 recipes are in this bottle, though, which is really cool. So it's a mix of the 60-35-5 and the 75-25. And it is, of course, like I said, chill filtered. So what does it taste like? That's the important part you guys all want to know. Let's nose it and taste it and let you guys know. I hope you enjoyed that lovely history lesson with Four Roses. And after this, we have all of the LEs from 2013 to 2022 to bring you guys. Right. So there'll be about one a month of those for the next year. Oh, yes. Smells like bourbon. Smells like dusty corn bourbon.
It does.
Caramel butterscotch. I mean, it smells like bourbon.
I'm surprised at the age of this because it smells a lot more grain forward than that.
Yeah, they said it's a minimum of 5. So I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was that old. I figured it was younger than that. But no, I mean, we know it has to be at least 4. It says that it's Kentucky straight bourbon. It has no, age statement. So we know at least 4, but they're telling me it's 5. So I'm glad to know that it's 5. Let's see. Vanilla, antique shop, cracked mud floors, barrel char, a little bit of
worn leather.
Yeah.
It's a lot of dusty corn. It's a lot of dusty corn, and I'm not picking up my rye spices. Which is surprising considering the high rye amount that's in here. Yeah, 35 on one, and you said 25 on the other? Right. Which is significantly higher than most. I mean, it's there, but it's really muted. At least on the nose it is. It's a mint. It's a spearmint. Yeah, it's a mint. But it's not a lot of it. Oh, it doesn't smell too ethanol forward, which is one of the things that it gets me on some of these lower bottom shelf whiskeys. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the price on this is $18, so they're not expensive by any means. And typically, when I find a bourbon at that price point, I'm expecting to smell more heads. Yes, agree. And that's not as present on this one. It's no. If it's there, it's subdued on the nose. Yeah, it's it's light. It's fragrant. It smells like a thin bourbon. Yeah, I mean, 40 will do that. Yeah. Tastes like bourbon. Vanilla, toffee, caramel, butterscotch, oak, barrel char. The rye spice is more prevalent on the palate. Absolutely. A lot more black pepper
than
I was expecting on the nose. And the spearmint is still there.
Yeah, definitely some nice, cherry NyQuil. It's like the cherry NyQuil you mix with the mint NyQuil. Is probably really the best way to describe that. It's like it took a combo of the both.
Yeah, there is a fake cherry.
Yeah, the viscosity of this is actually not bad, all things considering what it is.
No, it's still fairly thin, but the finish is surprising.
Mm-hmm.
The finish is still actually going, and at 40%, I don't expect that typically.
No, like mouth feels thin,
right?
But it's still sticking around, lingering on the oiliness of it. So it's not bad. But for a base product for $18, can't go wrong. I like it. I mean, I don't drink a ton of it for because I don't know why, but it's fun for mixing or people that are just getting into bourbon. It's a good one to people that are just getting into bourbon or people that are rye drinkers that might like to try bourbon. This is a good one for that. But yeah, it's all the other fun products Four Roses make that excite the hell out of me. So,
we were talking about the single barrel earlier. We have one of those sitting right here above my head. We don't ever let that one go empty. When it does, we get a new one.
Exactly.
It's always solid. It's always a hitter.
Exactly. Yeah, there's it's just good stuff. Yeah, the funny thing is, Four Roses, when they were replaced, Four Roses of Bourbon replaced it with this thing called Benchmark and Eagle Rare with the two Four Roses brand, which of course now are made by Buffalo Trace when they bought those out back in the 70s from them, which is funny. So, but apparently Four Roses is still the number one in bourbon in both Europe and Japan. So they clearly that move worked. I mean, it's still number one, and that was almost 100 years ago.
And they're actually releasing what we would consider to be bourbon over there.
Correct.
They're not releasing that grain neutral spirit BS.
Okay. Nope. They got rid of all. It doesn't exist anywhere anymore. The only way you're going to get that is somebody has a bottle sitting around because the blend never went overseas. The blend only went in America.
Gotcha.
So because that's who basically, saved the bourbon industry was Japan and Europe and Australia. If it wasn't for them, probably wouldn't be a bourbon industry. So they got the good stuff.
Yeah, it dropped off. It dropped off so hard in the 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but even before that, even in the 50s is when it really got bad, because that's when we got into vodkas and.
Oh, was it the 50s when people were getting into gin and vodka?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
It was after World War II.
That slide continued then for a while.
It got worse and worse and worse and worse, and that's why they started selling stuff off or moving it overseas because they were drinking it. We weren't.
Yeah, this is a surprising mouthfeel, a surprising finish, I will say.
Mm-hmm. It's still going. It's a nice whiskey for $18. Can't complain.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I bet you could get a handle for about 30.
Yeah, it's something like that for a handle. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a.
I mean, you need like a good well bourbon. This is perfect for that. That's got some substance to it, and
it's a definite step up from some of the other well bourbons that are floating around.
Yeah, I mean, I'd much rather drink this over like Benchmark. Personally, this has got a lot more going on to it. Or like 10 high or something like that. So typical bottom shelfers. So yeah, it's good.
I don't hate it. Mm-mm. Don't you forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Click that notification bell. We're live every Monday night. Come hang out with us there. Until next time, keep on crusading. Better whiskey in your glass. Cheers.